Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We're glad to have you this evening before your screens to follow what we have in store for you. This evening, we are going to be looking at the situation in Bamenda. Houses were razed yesterday, and some persons died in Bamenda. We also are going to be discussing about the kidnap of the founder of Bambalang alongside the Kamwata director, asking the question where we are actually heading to, but with focus on the motives why the world is silent about what is happening in Cameroon. We know of a research actually that was published by an organization in Denmark that suggested that what was happening in Cameroon was the most neglected conflict in the world. 1 year after seemingly nothing is happening, African nations are not also talking about what is happening in Cameroon. Is it because they themselves are overwhelmed by what is happening in the African continent? The world always ends at the level of making condemnations and also resolving on what ought to be done, but actually taking no action. We are going to be discussing on this evening with our panelists who are in the house already. Professor Mark Anthony is here with us. He is a Panafricanist. Good evening and welcome. Good
evening, Mr. Kum, and good evening to my fellow panelists and to Cameroonians and Africans watching. We are here to actually discuss on pressing issues that concern our daily lives as descendants from the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon.
Okay. We also in the company of Robert Malangfe. He is a militant of the ruling CPDM party. We're glad to have you, Robert.
Good evening, sir. Good evening to my co-panelists. And good evening to all Cameroonian one and indivisible that are in their homes watching us as we give our own views on how we can and make Cameroon a better place for ourselves now and for our children tomorrow.
We also are in the company of Lucas Njie, all the way from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital. He heads a non-governmental organization that seeks to actually receive fleeing children from the conflict-stricken Northwest and Southwest regions and providing them with the possibility of going to school. We're glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be on the panel again today. Mr. Leo, you know, this week on Friday, which I think is just tomorrow, it's going to be the International Human Rights Day. And you know, our organization is a member of the Southwest Union of Human Rights Association, and we are also affiliated to the Cameroon Human Rights Commission, or the Southwest Charter. And so I want the televiewers to know that we are discussing issues which are burning in Cameroon at a time when the human rights records of Africa and Cameroon in particular is not as it ought to be. So I think it is time for us to sit up, because without which then the children we see every day on the street, which I would say is my major concern, to see how they could have shelter, to see where they can go to school, and to see how they can feed. I think we have an increasing number. Like I told you the other time, heading into Douala immediately this evening, then I noticed that my phone was ringing just to pick up. It's a young woman who says she's just getting into Boya and she hasn't been to school. And so she was told that we provide education for children who are not capable to fund themselves. So you can clearly see where we are today. So I think it is high time for us, our Cameroonians, Africans, and the world, which is very silent to our issue, to why not give a listening ear, howbeit I know for sure that the solution to the ongoing crisis in Cameroon lies in the hands and in the hearts of Cameroonians. Thank you.
Okay, we are expecting the arrival into our studios of Muthaga Sylvanus, who is going to be representing the Cameroon Renaissance movement, a party led by Professor Maurice Kamto. But we also are going to be hooking up with Carlson Ayaba from Yaoundé, who should be on standby. Good evening, Carlson, and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening to all our panelists and viewers. It's been a very terrible moment for us in Cameroon, considering what happened at the Huya market last week, the amount of military casualties we had, and the amount of civilian casualties we had. It pains me most especially what happened yesterday, because I am the son of the soil from Bengi, and to see what happened, I am not very well impressed with the behavior of the military or the behavior of the armed which prolonged this kind of situation. I think we have the platform today to be able to be able to educate our brothers on both sides on how to avoid this kind of terrible mistakes.
Okay, I'll start with you, Professor Mark Anthony. The war is set to be grossly neglected. There was a research, an article that was published last year, 1 year after. Seemingly, what is happening in Cameroon is grossly still neglected.
Yes, Mr. Liu. What is happening in Cameroon seems to not be of interest to the international community. And I think there are reasons for that. One of the first reasons is that the government of Cameroon made it clear that it's an internal affair and they can handle it. Apart from that, most of those who have a say are actually allies to the Cameroon government. And so it is difficult to talk about a situation which is actually happening here right now, considering the fact that Cameroon stands in Central Africa as one of the greatest allies against terrorism. Look at what is happening with the Boko Haram. Cameroon is one of the allies fighting against that. So the United States might condemn, but they are slow in acting. The Great Britain might condemn, but they have slow actions to give. The same goes with France. In fact, the worst is even France, because France does not even see any interest in what is happening in Cameroon. It is there to protect its own interests. So I think, Mr. Liu, that there are a couple of reasons why the war will keep on going, but nobody will be talking about it. It would take, let me say, divine intervention for things to really change at the pace in which we see things happening, where every day you hear of killings, you hear of houses being burned, you hear of, in fact, it is really, really terrible. Just look at the way things are happening, considering that we are silent, even in the country, not to talk about those who are sit out. We talk of African Union, the African Union has nothing to say concerning it. We talk of the CEMAC zone itself, the CEMAC zone has nothing to say about it. What then do you think that, should I say, the international community from the West will say concerning it, when us Africans, we have little or nothing to say concerning what is happening in our own homes? So I think it is very important that the war should get to that place where we start looking at these human rights abuses that are happening, and not only stay silent. Let us give a word to those who are actually suffering. We should become the voice of the voiceless. It is very important. People are suffering every day. Houses have been burned. People have been killed. We are talking on both sides, where you have civilians killed, you have the military killed, you have the Amber Boys killed. Cameroonians are dying every day, and the war seems to be picking pace every day. And so that is something that we should not stay quiet about. I think it is necessary that something be done as early as possible to stop these useless killings, and to make sure that the people of the southern Cameroon, so northwest, southwest, should get the kind of, they should come out of this pain that they are suffering.
Okay. Robert Malangfe, can we understand why, after the reports that suggested that this conflict in Cameroon was grossly neglected, we are not seeing as much interest from the international community as would have expected?
I don't think I would like to use the word neglected. I just think that the sovereignty of Cameroon is being respected. Okay. Some of us were privileged to do political science, and I've been explaining this for the past 5 years. The state is the major player in the international scene. This non-governmental organization we are singing, we are just making noise. If we say the United Nations invaded Libya, who were the forces of the United Nations majority? You will know the country that had the majority of the forces there, and you will know their interests. Which are the forces that were in South Sudan? You start to name Somalia and the rest. you will know the countries that had the major influence to the United Nations for them to invade those countries. You come in the case of Cameroon, you realize that no country will even think about it. We know that when we talk about Security Council, China is there in Cameroon. We know the level of trade. You have Great Britain. We should check those countries that are exploiting oil in Cameroon. We have Russia. We should check who is controlling Sonara. If we have America, we should check who is controlling the gold and diamond in the East region. When you check all this, you realize that all this international community, they are collaborators. They are good countries with Cameroon. They have their interests. I would not like to talk about France because all of us, we know it. So when you know all this, it is time for us to know that those people in the diaspora that deceive Cameroonians of the Northwest and Southwest region, that the international community will intervene, that the United Nations have said they will send forces. Let school don't go. Let us stay indoors so that the international community will see. The international community has no interest. So them coming to Cameroon is not something we can discuss about it. We should accept the fact that those people in the diaspora deceive us. People that were selling newspapers now have houses in Europe, more than 700 million francs CFA because of the money they get from ransom and the rest. Within the course of the program, I will tell Cameroonians, all of them, the pastors and the rest and all their wealth they have in America, I have everything documented.
Yeah, but that's not the focus for our
to come back again to talk about it, what is important is for me to talk to the people that are in these two regions and not to those in the diaspora, because they are doing their lobbying, their business, and they are getting what they are having. It is time for us of the Northwest and Southwest region to sit together, look into each other's eyes, keep emotions away, keep party affiliations away, and talk face to face on the way forward. When we decide to do that, then we'll get to a lasting solution. I appreciate villages that decided to stand on their own to say they don't want ambas in their villages. I have not said that the military of Cameroon is perfect. That's not what I'm saying. They have their flaws, their weaknesses, which we all know. But when the villagers will stand up and say, fine, we don't want these people with arms in our villages, then I assure those people in those villages that they will not have any problem. But when you allow ambas to come in your village and create act of terrorism, attack the military, when the military will attack the amber in your village, then when they start to fight, the stray bullet will look at you and you turn to blame the government. So I am saying that the state is responsible for the security of all Cameroonians. The state is responsible for the security of citizens in Northwest and the Southwest region. But we should also know that it is written in the Constitution that it is the duty of every Cameroonian to participate in the security of Cameroon. So when we are talking about the state, we should know that is our duty. And now that is our duty, what are we doing as citizens to carry out our duty to ensure that there is security in our immediate environment before looking at the state to come at the macro level when we are at the micro level to ensure that this problem comes to an end? We should please carry out our civic responsibility.
Mr. Lucas G, do you also share the view that 1 year after the crisis in Cameroon, specifically in the Southwest and Northwest regions, is actually greatly neglected?
Of course, we cannot deny such facts. And I want the viewers to also know that we have crisis in Africa. I want to believe that Africa, somewhere along the line, probably doesn't want to understand that she is not at the center of the war in terms of development, but in terms of exploitations and many more. You see, we have DRC, we have Burkina Faso, we have Cameroon. And sadly, in 2019, Cameroon topped the chart. And in 2020, it was the same case of the most neglected conflict on planet. as was titled by the Secretary General of the Norwegian Refugee Council. That should be on the 10th of, I think, 10th of June 2020. That was the report they had to put up. And what we need to know is, firstly, the focus quite much on the international law, which you cannot also put it aside. It is obvious that once a state says the conflict in my country is an internal problem, then it is going to have limited attention. Now, let us take the case of Boko Haram up in the north, Mr. Leo. You would realize that up in the north, immediately the pronouncement was made that we are declaring war against Boko Haram. We saw how the international community mobilized and they supported Cameroon to fight up in the north. America had to send warships or so. Other countries supported, France supported, and many more. But with regards to the conflict of the separation wahala in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, which has now invoked another appellation called the Amazonian crisis, it is becoming the most neglected conflict because the government talks of internal issues, while out there, the people, most of those who are crying of issues that has to do with separation. And on the part of the government, you can clearly see from what the government has presented out there as the problem and a solution to the problem, including what the president said in France, that the major problem in the northwest and southwest of Cameroon is the issue of trying to integrating the people of the northwest and southwest into the system. So the war out there has a different picture while something else is on the ground. Now, we all have to understand and bear this fact and accept this fact that right now, before a conflict is known or the measure or outlet to bring out a conflict to the war is the fourth estate or the fourth state, which is the media. And we all know that there are certain mediums or certain media, once they have not had your issue on their platform, no matter what you do when the international community is concerned, they will not know about it. And we have a good number of them who are not talking about this. Those who talk about it, they talk about it as the crisis that we have in Cameroon as presented by the state. So it is obvious that the attention we are expecting from the international community will not come because the information which is out there is unlike what is happening inside. And no matter all the revendications we have seen at the UN headquarters and the things we see in Switzerland and many more, given that we also had the Brigade Anti-Sardina that took part in some of these things, it further made it very difficult for the war out there to know that it is a conflict that is killing people, but they see it as an internal issue. You see, if you were to look at the next door in Africa, let us take the case of Ethiopia. The war out there know it because the platforms on which these things are being discussed, which they see the images of what is happening in Ethiopia, it is clear that something is happening. That is why you could hear the war, you could hear those who matter, they are calling on the warring parties in Ethiopia to sit up and to see what they have to do. But in the case of Cameroon, since the government says it is an internal issue, it is but obvious that they will not look at it with the perception that many have out there, that they should look at it as a conflict. Out there, they see it as a problem. They see it as a governmental problem. They see it as a problem which has to do with issues that centers around the state which we find ourselves. So I think that it is only coming right now to confirm what I have been saying, that if we are waiting for that so-called angel out there to bring solution to our problem, then I want to tell the viewers that it is not going to be possible. Of course, it won't be possible because out there, what they know is not what is happening in here. And until when they get to know what is happening in here, then their perception or their calls on what to do with regards to the crisis in Cameroon will change. But before then, we should also look at it, why it may not actually get their attention. We should not forget that the excesses of the non-state actors and the silenceness of the communities where these things are, where these things are happening. The international community, it is also made up of human beings who they can infer certain things and they will tell you where to place themselves. Now, take for example, if a situation happens with the non-state actors and it is not decried, if somebody perpetrates war crime and it is not decried from within when it's coming from the non-state actors, it causes the world to see the things out there differently. So I think that in order for us to get the amount of attention we are expecting with regards to the conflict in Cameroon, or with regards to the crisis in the northwest and southwest of the country, it is obvious that the media has to come into it, because this is the only person, if I were to make it a human being, that will cause the war out there to know what is happening. Okay. And the media for now is not talking about it. If we talk about the media, we should look at Pan-African medias. We should look at those that are in Europe. Let us look at those that are in America. Let us look at those that are in Asia. Are they talking about it? If they are not talking about it, then their state houses, which in quote we think they are the solution to the crisis, will still not know about it.
Okay, good evening to you, Osa Ferdinand, Chris Mary B. Good evening to you too, Mark Emos, Andy Fobang Mbiercha. Good evening to you, Son Derek, watching us from Bonaberry, and to you, my junior sister Akyung Anita Tachem, always watching the program. I'm glad to know that you are watching. But Carlson, Anaba, you are in Yaoundé. What would account for this silence, observance from the international community? Why is the world silent about what is happening in Cameroon?
Well, before we talk about why the world is silent, which I don't believe the world is silent, we should first condemn whatever the military did in Bangui, because the military are guided by a professional code of conduct and they are bound to respect it. They cannot be retaliating. Retaliation is not an excuse to inflict pain on the civilian population, which they are there to protect. So first of all, we must condemn whatever the military did in Bangui, because you cannot be living from what they say in Pidgin, from frying pan to fire. You cannot be wanting to give a solution which causes more problems. Now, talking about the neglect from the international community, I don't think that there has been neglect from the international community, Mr. Liu, because the international community is caught in between 2 points. The first point is they have to respect the sovereignty of Cameroon, and the second thing is they are watching from the sidelines. Recall that we have seen many instances where in the parliaments of these international bodies, countries, United States, Britain, Germany, in their parliaments, they have sat and deliberated on the Southern Cameroons or on the Cameroons issue. And at the end of the day, if you look at all of their communiques or their releases, there's one thing particular. They realize that it is a conflict between two internal people which are causing problems on the civilians. And they always very well prescribe in these their releases that the government should give the opportunity to dialogue and the separatists should respect human rights. They should be able to let people exercise their freedoms and follow democratic processes to be able to resolve their problems. So that's something which you notice in all their press conferences. So it's not like they have been neglected anyway. There has not been neglect. And why I can also say there has not been neglect, I'll give you 4 points where there has not been neglect. The first thing is, some people think that what is happening in Cameroon, they try to compare it to what happened in Rwanda. Sorry, what is happening in Cameroon is not yet the level of genocide. And I think the international community is always moved when something gets very great. At this point, they still realize it's an internal conflict, and it has not been measured up to a level which they can warrant the presence of forces in the ground. And besides, when the Amber faction tries to present the case that their zones have been militarized, the Cameroon government always brings up the position that no, we are here because of security, and that position always beats any other argument which the Amber faction wants to bring. The fact that the Cameroon government has placed personnel on the ground for security keeping. The second thing which you think the international community has neglected, which in reality they have not neglected, is no international body is going to come into a country to be able to champion the separation of that country. It is almost impossible. Why? The first thing, imagine the United States comes to this country and wants to spearhead the separation of Cameroon. Indirectly, the United States is trying to tell its own citizens back, because the United States is a federal conglomeration of states, is indirectly telling its own citizens back there that whenever you are not happy with the state of a union, you can quit. So you see that there's no way that an international body will come and put itself in the middle to be able to champion the division of the country. The third thing is the international body realizes that it's a geopolitical internal conflict which needs a geopolitical solution, not an international interference solution. They realize that it does not need a military solution, but the government will always back up its point that it needs military personnel on the ground for security. They realize that it's an internal solution, internal conflict which requires an internal solution that can be solved only by Cameroonians, because it is two Cameroonians fighting themselves. So you never see the international body come to put himself in the middle when they have realized that these 3 points are brought are not able to, and is not able to justify their presence on ground. The fourth thing is the international body. When this crisis started, we had many media organs who were presenting false information to the international body. So probably the ambas will dress in military attire and commit atrocities, and it is published all over the world that no, the Cameroon military carried out these gruesome acts. And when they have their fact-finding missions on ground, they see that no, it was right, it's the other story. So you see that now they distrust me. They don't only distrust what people think the government say, they also distrust what those who are in favor of separatism or the Amber faction, they also distrust what they tell them. You don't expect somebody from the Amber faction to get up to tell the international body that this is happening and see a quick reaction, because in the past, these news media organs have been making that bloody mistake to be giving them false information. Now they have to be very sure of themselves before they make a move to be able to come on ground. So it's on these 4 points that you realize that they are not neglecting the crisis, but they realize that what is happening here is based on the sovereignty of Cameroon, and Cameroonians can solve it with geopolitical means, and they are watching from the sidelines to be able to give in their advice and expertise on the nature of conflict resolution.
Carlson, you say they have discovered that it has to do with Cameroon's sovereignty, but we've seen them intervene in other instances internationally. Why is Cameroon's case different?
Well, Cameroon's case is different. The first thing we can talk about is what happened that this problem came. This is a problem between how Cameroon was able to live from one form of a state to another form of a state after its independence. Now, the historical fact is that there are 2 bodies. There was an English-speaking side of Cameroon which joined a French-speaking side. And now, if those who were the ones who led these 2 people to join, Britain and France, are not making any statement, these 2 members are members of the Security Council. If both of them are not trying to make any statement or trying to put something concrete to be able to resolve a crisis, we don't expect other members of the Security Council, in particular US, China, Russia, to be able to say something. So that is why that's the very point I'm trying to say for the question which you asked.
Okay. Professor Mark Anthony, civil society, they are also supposed to call these guys to action, because we're talking about the international community that is not doing enough. But back home, civil society organizations, are they doing enough? Are they rather not using the crisis to make money? Almost everybody wants to look at where you can get into to make money, and not necessarily bringing this situation out to the world for an intervention, or actually working to pressure either sides to bring the war to an end.
Mr. Liu, working with the civil service in Cameroon, or say being a part of the civil society in Cameroon, is more dangerous than being either in a political party, or is more dangerous. You see, the reason is you are standing on a neutral position, and everybody wants you to be on their position. And if you have to point out to the government, these are your errors, you are considered an enemy. And when you turn and tell the Amber, the separatists, this is your position, they consider you an enemy. So at the end of the day, you are standing on a risky ground. To say that most of them are using this crisis to make money, I might not want to look at it from that particular point, because I don't have facts that they're actually making money out of it. But I would say that we are dealing with 2 stubborn, should I say, elements here. The government has its position, and when you talk, they have it that this is a sovereign state, and the government is out to defend the sovereignty of the state. And so it has no point or no position of negotiating separation of part of its country. And when you turn towards the separatists, the Ambazonians have it that they are not part of Cameroon, and they want to live out of this union. And so there are 2 extreme positions which trying to stand in between and pull them is not easy. And so, being part of the civil society is like trying to play God when you don't have the let me use the word, the powers enough to do that.
Yeah, but the issue is, he raised the issue, the fact that today the international organizations are not quick to believe in what is coming out of our media organs outfit, because formerly they gave information that were not very credible. Was it not also an opportunity for the internet, for the civil society to provide these instances, be it the AU, whatever organization, with the credible information, given the fact that they now play the middle ground position?
Mr. Leo, I think that some of them have been doing that. I remember that if you, not to do publicity, Shada always does.
Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, yeah.
They always do a kind of reports, not even annually, I think quarterly, monthly reports concerning what is happening.
Madam
Kawala does that.
Also, yeah.
There's this one, Redac, they do that. So I think in one way or the other, they are exposing what is happening here in Cameroon. But like we said earlier, it is difficult for the international community to actually do anything, considering that the major players in that international community are allies of Cameroon. And on that basis, it becomes practically difficult to push things to that extreme where they are going to jump in and start playing. Why? Because the Cameroon government has made it plain that this is an internal affair. And as long as they said it's an internal affair, they are going to, the international community is going to sit and watch. Except when the human rights abuses get to extreme, before you will see them coming in. Considering that the red line would have been broken.
Yeah, what red lines when the houses are being burnt and people
Mr. Leo,
are dying?
That is the issue, that you see, houses are burnt, people are dying. The worst part of it is we have proofs that whether it's the military that is burning houses or the Amba burning houses, there are proofs. But the truth is that with the international community, they always wait till when things have gone to the extreme. I'm sure that they will consider that in Cameroon, they will tell you, no, it's how many people have died? Over 20-something thousand have died, but that death, those deaths have nothing to do.
Yeah, but is the problem
they are looking at millions.
Is the problem, Robert, is the problem actually the fact that many more persons have not died, or the fact that most of these guys are engaged in serious business dealings with Cameroon? And the fact that Cameroon also plays a very important place when we talk about the CEMAC sub-region.
It is very wrong for us to say that it's because many people have not died. When Ethiopia invaded the Tigray region, which we all saw, less than 2 days, less than 10 people died. But the whole world talked about it. CNN, BBC, all of them, they talked about it. How many people died at Tigray? So it is not because of the number of people that died. That's what I want to be.
Yeah, many villages have been decimated,
Where?
in Cameroon.
Oh, talking about the case of Cameroon and villages that are being burned. My brother, my co-panelist in Yaoundé, said it very clear in plain English. He said he first started by condemning the military. Then he went further to say, Amba boys now put military dress to burn down villages, so it is complicated to know who is doing the action. I believe my viewers now watching us, they understand what is actually going on. So he is condemning, but he does not know if they are Ambas in uniform doing it or is the military. That is the situation where we are.
Yep.
But the honest truth I want us to be talking about is we should stop who have done what and who have not done what. We should not go back to history. We've sang that for the past 5 years.
Are you answering my question?
Yes, your question is the fact that we don't know who is doing this action, burning of houses. Or am I wrong?
No. My question is the reasons why the international community is not coming. Is it the fact that many more persons have not died, or the fact that they're into serious business with Cameroon and using Cameroon as that buffer zone in this sub-region.
Okay, one, I'll tell you that it's not a fact because many people have not died, because we've seen other cases where not up to 10 people died and they intervened. Secondly, your next question I'll ask, and that's what I said at the opening of my statement. There is nothing as international organization or whatsoever. They are just a meeting of people. If you study the First World War, you understand why they call it the toothless bulldog and the rest. We have states. They are the major players in the international scene. If America wants to intervene in any country, they'll use the umbrella of the United Nations to do their actions. So there is not as international community. The state is the major player in the international scene. And so the interests now of those states are not there. And they will not intervene. Secondly, the sovereignty of Cameroon is very, very clear. Cameroon is a sovereign nation. What do you want Nigeria to tell Cameroon about separation when they have the Biafra there? Their own leader in prison, the Biafra leader in prison. The Yoruba leader that have just been extradited from Benin Republic to Abuja. What do you want Nigeria to say? What do you want America to say that they're having the same problem? What do you want Spain to say that they're having the same problem? If I will list of all the countries, because those are the problems they face. For me, I believe that the notion of the international community, that the people, the indigenous, the autochthones of Northwest and Southwest region, the mindset they had about the international community is wrong. Because at the onset, separatists, they deceived them. They stay at home, don't go to school, the international community will come. Have ghost town, the international community will come. That is the mindset that was built in the mind of people. This is 5 years going. Thousands have lost their life. The international community is silent. We were deceived by those in the diaspora. What do we do us in the ground now to bring the peace? Because I'm one of those that have been analyzing for the past 5 years, talking about history, calling Foncha, Jwa, Estimuna, Solomon, Tandemuna. No. We have called all of them. We've made the history clear. We know it's marginalization. The president has accepted clearly. It is time for us to forgive and move ahead. Now, what do we do as origin of the Northwest and Southwest region to bring out a lasting peace? When the military step in Northwest and Southwest, we know they are the military. Those that have picked up arms in the name of Amba, they are our brothers. I'm from Dop. There is nothing you tell me about Amba from Dop. No, those Ambas in Dop don't come from Kambe. They don't come from Bui. They come from Dop. We know who they are. And so in all the other villages, they are not foreigners. It is time now for us to talk with our brothers in the bush. And also it is time for us to talk too with our elites. I want to be very clear. You see, when a lot of people have died, we need to be honest on how we see things. Our elites need to be very, very close to the people. I appreciate the elites of the Southwest region. They are very close with their people. They don't do one-man show. Sorry to bring this issue of regions. I know some people will say that they have always been the issue of Northwest and Southwest, but no, I'm not into that game. I'm a big politician to come into those childish games. I appreciate the elite of the Southwest region. They are closer to their people. Those in Yaoundé work with the young ones, the youth. They know what is happening in the field. Let our elite in the Northwest region don't play one-man show. We know most of them that they play one-man show. They don't bring the people closer to them, or they don't go closer to the people. And I'm afraid in some few months' time, this issue will not be the Anglophone issue, but it will be the Northwest issue. So let our elites of the Northwest come closer to their people so that we can find a lasting solution.
Okay.
Let our citizens, those in the Northwest and Southwest, work with those we have. We should respect our chiefs. They are all we have to work with them. They have legitimacy. We should work with men of God. They have legitimacy. They are the people we can work with. Our leaders are not fabricated. They are there. Those that are divine, those that are elected, and those that are appointed. We need to work with them. Not kidnapping chiefs. Not desecrating the church. Not insulting men of God. They are our leaders who will stand up to talk for us. I bet you, Mr. Kum Leonard, if today Professor Mark Antonio stand up to talk about that he is the leader he wants to represent Northwest and Southwest, you'll be shocked with what the indigenous of Northwest and Southwest will talk about him. They will discredit him. They will insult him. They will bring him to the level of a rat and make him useless not to be able to represent them. How do we solve the problem when we discredit our leaders?
Okay, the problem is ourselves. Okay, Wesley Angoni Tiku, good evening to you, and to you Hashumu Mohammed, good evening to you Fobang Ambiacha, and to you Osa Ferdinand, good evening to you Abaka Mo Untai, good evening to you Nja Emos Miki Fomukong, good evening to you Ade Andreas, good evening to you Abe Tinga, and to you Harrison Nanje, all watching via social media. We're glad to also note that the debate is also hot out there, but he just raised an issue of representation. We're talking about MPs and our MPs. We have mayors, local representatives. If we say the word is silent, how vocal are the local representatives, especially those from the Southwest and Northwest regions? When it comes to what is happening in the Northwest and Southwest region, hardly do we hear from the newly elected regional presidents, hardly do we hear the MPs from the Southwest and Northwest regions come together to say, we are not too happy with what has happened in Mbembe Road yesterday. We are not too happy with the arrest or with the kidnappings of the Kamwata boss. We are not too happy with the kidnapping of the phone of Bambalang. We are not happy with what is happening in Boya recently, especially the supermarket. Elites are quiet.
Yeah, let me.
If our elites are quiet, why do we blame the international community for just observing?
Yeah, let me share with the viewers some of the reasons why we find ourselves where we are. Firstly, you should not forget that most of our elites are not credited anymore by the people. That's for sure. Yeah, I think it's good for our elites to know this, and I think this is where Robert says they have to come back to their people. It is obvious that our elites, we trusted them a lot. This is what the common man there will tell you, that they gave their all to this elite. And because of the failures which they began facing on the ground, it gives them no reasons to believe in their elite. Now, I know for sure that our funds, our religious leaders, it is obvious that if you look at the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon, the only thing we have left is our religious leader. These persons are there. Now, the big question is, would we give them up if a talk is called? Now, a lot of people talk about who to talk with and who not to talk with. I said it some time ago and I'll still reiterate it. It is obvious that we have two things in Cameroon. We have the war of separation that has brought in attrition warfare, which is very difficult to manage. And you have the Anglophone crisis. So the elite would speak with regards to the Anglophone crisis in most cases, but they cannot speak with regards to the war of separation because that is not their position. Of course, you cannot be an elite. If we talk about this elite, we are looking at the political elite. And if you talk about the political elites, they are militants, they are militating. And in this case, we have them militating with the ruling party. So you would not expect that this should come from them. Now, if you were to talk about the Anglophone crisis, we have heard some of them speaking for the people. I remember in 2019 when we talk about the bilingualism bill, I remember Senator Moki said something that at this point in time, with this sensitive nature of things, we should not be talking about these things because it will not really be good. I think in one of the times he had a meeting in Boya, he told some of the elites that they need to go and speak to the people. If we say we want these children to go to school, then we should serve as examples. We should be an exemplary leader. We should get the children to the classes. So you realize that the elites of the Northwest and Southwest regions do not longer hold that position they used to have in the hearts of their people. Howbeit, I said it again, it was on this same platform that if we want to easily solve this crisis, I will beg of our elites to come on board. All we need right now is that person who will be there to solve this problem for us. The truth is, it is becoming more difficult because we are talking about the war of separation. But it would have been easy to solve this crisis if we were talking about the marginalization of the Anglophones. And because separation is involved, it makes it more complicated. If you were in the shoes of that person whom you consider your enemy, you will not accept. In a home, Mr. Leo, it is first of all difficult for a parent to accept that a child has come of age to leave the house and go somewhere to stay. Then talk less of a country which you expect that it should go divided. So it is going to be very difficult. I think these are the realities and the hard ones that our people need to know, because if you do not tell them this, they will live in illusion. And it is because of this that so many have died. Others are dying. Others are even being booked to be killed because of the things they say and because of the things they do. So our elite, again, may not really be in a better position to talk about this war of separation. But they could speak when you talk about the Anglophone crisis. And this is where I'm calling on the elites right now. I think it's high time for us to say the truth. It is obvious what actually caused this war. I remember one of the guys who have surrendered, Kawa Yannick, he said, I think that was during the Grand National Dialogue. He enumerated certain things which to him was the reason why he went to the bush. Therefore, if these things are put in place, all of what we are talking about would not be there. So I know for sure that the people of the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon are a peace-loving people. Howbeit, they were infiltrated with certain ideas which are no more productive. At the beginning, a good number of them saw it as a tool to vent out their anger because of a system they were frustrated with. Howbeit, today it is not the case. It has brought about the war of separation. And this war of separation further complicates the Anglophone crisis because the government now is dealing with two things. She has struggled to put solutions with regards to the Anglophone crisis or with the Anglophone problem, and she is now struggling to see how she could stamp out the separatists within the Cameroonian territory. So it is a difficult one for the elite. But I want to say that if I were in the shoes of that particular elite, it is obvious that your people will forever remain your people. And all you need to do is to look for another means. When you try this, it doesn't go for the other means. And I think one of the major problem with most of the elite is the way they talk back to their people. You know, it is obvious that I am coming from Menchum, right? And if I have to go back to Menchum, and I know that I have offended the people of Menchum as they consider, because some of these people feel offended as they consider, but you may not want to see it. The Bible says make peace with all men. It therefore means that whether this person finds you right or not, but for the sake of Christ, you should make peace. So I think it is time for our elite to why not sit up and tell, okay, that this is the situation at hand. This is what we are going to do. If the man down there gets up tomorrow and finds some of these things which are not there put in place, I believe that the narrative will change. So I'm calling on the elite. They are the ones to preach this out. You did ask Robert why the international community is not really focusing on this. The truth is the international community, they believe so much in the person, or they believe so much from that information that comes from the grassroots. And once the information that comes from the grassroots is not coming out as it ought to be, they'll find it obvious. And again, what do you expect them to do? You will not expect France, who is keeping the reserve of Cameroon, to set into this crisis, to start talking about, to sit on the same table with separatists. France could sit on the same table with the Cameroonians of the Northwest and Southwest on certain issues. But you will not expect America, who knows what she is benefiting. You will not expect Britain, who knows what she is benefiting from the country, to sit on the same table to say, okay, I am going to divide it. And again, the separatists may not really like this because of the fact that their activities are poorly coordinated. It discredits them. Therefore, the question on who to discuss with will never end because truly you can see it. Today you have the A faction that talks about this. Tomorrow you have the B faction that talks about this. And before you realize it, you may want to expect the C to set in now to balance the things. You rather see the C coming in now with different view with regards to what A and B has said. So it makes it very difficult because their informations cannot be coordinated. They cannot be taken with iotas of truth. So I think to answer the question on why our elites are not there and why the international community does not know about this, or why our elites are not talking about it, it is because our elites cannot talk about separation. Our elites will talk about marginalization. They will not talk about separation.
Okay, we're taking a short break to continue after a few seconds.
There's nothing more magical than spending good times with the family during the holidays. So, join Canal Plus and let's spend the holidays together. To welcome you, the decoder is 5,000 francs and installation offered with many channels.
Ça sera la musique ou rien.
C'est tout.
What to love?
Nous avons un duel Afrique de l'Ouest, Afrique centrale.
Dance and ignite your evenings. Share strong moments full of twists and turns. And even make the younger ones dream.
Passage en vitesse, Mac Noel. Tout est prêt pour qu'on profite de
Nothing kill my vibe. I see you watching my stories. I see you getting my lifestyle. I see you watching my movements. This bad bitch bad every day. I know they look at your face. Bad man bad every day. Get on your knees and pray. Do you regain your faith?
Welcome back. You're watching Prime on my Media Prime. We are looking at what is happening in the Northwest region, specifically the kidnapping of the phone of Bambalang. We also have the situation of the Kamwata director that was kidnapped for the Northwest and West region. We also have the situation yesterday in Bamenda where houses were razed and persons are killed, and questioning why many persons are silent. And we're looking at the international community bed. Ayaba, Carlson, we are talking about MP senators from the Northwest and Southwest regions. How vocal have they been towards what is happening in their backyard?
I get you.
Hello, Carlson, can you get me now?
I can get you now.
Okay, my question is how vocal our MP senators from the Northwest and Southwest region, how vocal have they been on what is happening in their backyard? Because seemingly we are asking the international community why they have been silent, but how active have we been in Cameroon?
Now, the reality is when the international community has to come to Cameroon, the first thing which there's always a procedure of what they will do. The first thing is they will try to approach the locals, the population, to be able to hear the side of the story, so that by the time they meet the government, they know on what they are talking, they have facts with what they are talking. But the international community has realized that for over 5 to 6 years now, in the Senate and in the Parliament, the people who we have elected to represent us are failing to bring up this very important subject. I remember a few years ago when some MPs wanted to bring up the subject of the Anglophone crisis, other MPs from a particular party had to walk out of the stage. Now, these are the kind of things that when the international community is aware, the international community now has the conviction that you guys don't even want to solve your problem. So how do you expect somebody to come and solve your own problem when you don't want to solve your own problem? And the international community does not have this conviction only about the MPs or about the government. It also has this conviction about the separatists, because the separatists cannot keep crying to the international community that, oh, please come and help us. We are in danger. We are suffering. We are oppressed. But at the same time, the international community is receiving reports of the kind of atrocities you are carrying. What do you expect the international community? How do you expect the international community to react when they hear that? Obviously, they know that Africa is a place where we respect custom and traditions, but they read and hear reports that you have kidnapped a fund in a very big fund. Then you don't expect the international community to be able to side with that kind of person, or the international community who always want to explain to everybody to respect human rights. One of the concepts of human rights is the right of education, but they hear that you are going to attack a school and kill school children, school pupils. Do you expect that kind of international community to even stand and vouch for you? So the international community has realized that on the side of the government, the MPs are not doing their job. I'm very sorry to say. How many MPs even go back to their constituencies? Since this crisis started, some of them are lingering here in Yaoundé. We should be, when we come on air, we should also be very serious to point out these very things. These MPs have failed to bring up this subject in the parliament, and the international community knows that for dialogue to take place, the Cameroon government must be at the center stage. So if members of government, if elected members of government, those who are responsible for creating legal institutes or creating laws, are not able to hold this into parliament or into Congress or into Senate and discuss this topic, then I don't expect, it is not the common man. You don't give the common man another solution. The common man will already have the solution to pick up arms, and which is the truth, because for it to be able to divide the country, it's not the international community which will come and divide the country. It is either you guys divide the country or somebody picks up arms and divides the country. So now the members of parliament are not giving a chance for people to be able to dialogue and keep this country at one piece. They are rather pushing people to be able to use the other option which they have to be able to divide the country. So you don't really expect the international community to be able to come into a country where the government itself is not ready to bring up this problem in front of its face and decide it, and the separatists themselves are not ready to say, okay, let us give a chance. Let me tell you something, Mr. Liu. The day that the leaders of these separatist groups would declare a lockdown or declare a ceasefire or a period of grace, probably let's say 2-3 weeks, you see that many things will happen. So at the end of the day, nobody is giving the other a chance to be able to let the international community come and provide its expertise, because at the end of the day, that's what the international community will do. They're not coming to be the ones to pull the shots. They're only coming to give their expertise to be able to make sure that these brothers look eye to eye and say what is concrete, say what is true, and say the compromises they will make. So until our members of parliament and Senate try to do something in their parliaments or in their congresses, I'm very sorry, the international community will only look at us as two clowns fighting.
But away from the international community, what stops MPs, senators from the Northwest and Southwest region and Cameroon as a whole to actually give a very strong voice as to either condemning or saluting what is happening there, away from what the international community may want to do or not?
I think one of the powers that the MPs have is that they cannot be prosecuted once elected as an MP. So it is very shocking that people who know that they cannot be directly prosecuted by the law are afraid to do what the law cannot really hold them responsible for. A local civilian will know, if I get up today and stand and shout separation, federalism, or confederation, they are going to take me and lock me up. But the MPs realize that they are the ones the people have elected to be able to give the voice, to speak the voice of the people in Congress. So why are they not saying in Mr. Liu? I think the first thing is these MPs, before being elected, they swore an oath to be able to assume that position, and this oath is in tie with the Constitution of Cameroon, and they realize that in the Constitution of Cameroon, it is well prescribed that it is one and indivisible. But indivisibility does not mean that other forms of the state which still guarantee a unitary form which you can exist, one form which you can exist, because federalism does not mean the country will divide, confederalism does not mean the country will divide, always separatism means the country will divide. So they have other avenues which they can explore. There are many problems, which there are many ways to kill a bird, Mr. Liu. It cannot only be separation that is going to render this crisis null. There are other ways which the MPs can use their powers, but I'm so shocked that they don't want to use their powers of not being able to be prosecuted, their powers of being able to speak up something, and people will hear. If those who have elected, who have the power to say something, are not saying it, then you don't give the civilians any other choice than to pick up arms and to be causing chaos everywhere, left and right.
Okay. Good evening to you, Litumbe Wilson, and to you, Kume Isamba. My brother, good evening to you, Chingale Tenti, and to you, Kufe Robert. Good evening to you, Martha, and Ben Seka, Tachu, and Harrison Nanje, all watching on Facebook. Glad to note that you're always watching. Now, we're talking about MPs, but let's look at political parties themselves. Are they not also behaving like civil society organizations wanting to make gains out of what is happening in the Southwest and Northwest region, projecting themselves as the saviors, and are not necessarily coming together with a very strong voice, either pushing for an end on the side of the separatists or the government?
Since 2016, Mr. Leo, most political parties have actually used the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest in order to make political gains. Mm. In fact, they use it as a joker to make themselves known. Using names of parties might not be what I want, but I think if you looked at it, we had a situation where a party boycotted the election using the situation that happened in Northwest and Southwest. And it was shocking that when it came to presidential election, this same party went in when there was this crisis. And so that's just to indicate to you that a lot of political parties are taking advantage and trying to gain importance, while the blood of young people, in fact, blood of Cameroonians from the Northwest and Southwest, is actually being shed. You see, it is something that I thought by now they would have, even since they have been using it, spoken. Consider the burnings yesterday of houses in the Northwest. I think it is something that every political leader was supposed to have condemned. You see, some persons will ask me questions when I speak in relation to this issue of houses. Who burns the houses? We can't claim here like Robert just said that our brother confused was saying that there's military put on, the Amber put on military policing and come. And no, in this case, we know very well that the military burns those houses. And it is coming after a retaliation. In fact, it's a retaliation. After 7 of them were killed. Which is something that I think...
yeah, but this, if that information needs to
be verified.
We cannot independently...
Prof,
we cannot independently... Yeah, just go on.
In saying that, I will say this. It is true that we do not have detailed facts on the ground. Information that is coming says that individuals were attacked, military was attacked, and later on there was burning in the evening. And so it's something that we cannot just throw blind eyes on it. Apart from that, that's not even my target of discussion. Where I am coming from is the fact that when there is a war, there is bound to be casualties. There is bound to be casualties. And these casualties will come from both sides. What is irking me in the whole issue is the fact that it is a civilian population that is paying the price. And paying this price, we have political parties that have been using the name of this particular crisis to grow their ranks. I think it is time for them also to rise up and say this thing should end. What is their importance? We have more than 300 and something parties in Cameroon. I've not heard any of them actually standing up to say anything. Military has been killed. Those are children of some persons that had been killed. There's Amber boys that were killed. Those are children of some persons. What are those who are saying that there is one, Cameroon is a one and indivisible nation doing in order to stop this issue? It is true that if we keep on pointing fingers, blaming one another for this and that, at the end of the day, we'll go nowhere. there is need for Cameroonians to rise up. In fact, there is need for every individual who has interest in this particular crisis to make their voice heard. Worst of it, Leo, you just spoke about the members of parliament. Those are some of the persons that I feel a little bit disgruntled with, because I think that they were supposed to use their powers to speak concerning this issue. But since its inception in 2016 to today, they practically have been saying nothing about it. And in this case, some people will ask the question, how then are they representing them? Because you can't claim that you are representing the people. I don't know if the person who is representing Bengui spoke concerning the issue. I don't know if the person who is representing Bambalang spoke concerning the arrest of a fund. That is the desecration of our very sacred rituals and rights. Now this person of Kamwata, who is doing his job, he's doing his job. What is the reason for which he was picked up? And so those are some of the, in fact, things that are happening that makes the whole issue very complicated. And at the end of the day, you feel like you are standing in the middle of a dish somewhere, lost. And I think that even though I am talking against the members of parliament not talking, I'm trying to understand the reason why they are quiet. But like Carlson mentioned, they have this immunity. They can use it while it is time.
Why are they silent? You say you understand why they cannot?
Yes, I want to say that most of them are afraid. They have fear. They have fear. And that fear is taking a greater toll over them to an extent where, in fact, houses have been burnt of some of their friends, colleagues. Some of their houses have been burnt. So most of them feel like, okay, if I talk, I'll be targeted, which is not correct like that. Why? Because if you are going there, you should have the courage to face what comes. You are going there for the people. Say the truth. I think that when somebody speaks the truth, irrespective of what comes, at the end of the day, you are liberated from within. Truth has that power to liberate an individual. So when you struggle to play around with the truth, you'll be the one to suffer the pain. And so I think we shouldn't condole with them in any way that they are staying quiet. But as I said, I'm trying to understand them. And trying to understand them does not mean they should stay quiet.
You are the militant of the CPDM party. Can you understand the silence of our representatives? They were elected to represent the people in good and bad times now.
Yes, when we talk about representative, I would like to take the upper house. We had the last session, the last one we had during the crisis. I believe senators were from SDF in the Northwest, and Southwest had the CPDM senator. And we saw Senator Mbela Moki Charles that came out clearly and said that the abuse, he will not vote because he cannot go back and see his people and tell them that he voted such bills. So we have people that speak. And the way the assembly function, they come, they sit at the plenary session, they discuss, and everybody goes back to the financial commission. Everybody has his commission where the real deal is being done there. I would not like to go, because maybe the issue of parliamentarians started when I talked about elite. When I talk about elite, it's very vast. Political elite, social elite, like our chief priest. We even have economic elite, economic bourgeoisies. They have the financial capability to influence many things in the Northwest and Southwest region, but they are not there. The richest family from the Semak zone is in the Southwest region. The richest Cameroonian in the Semak zone is from the Northwest region. They are economic bourgeoisies. What have they done? What part have they played? They have the finances. They have their closeness to the government and everything. What have they done? I would not want us to focus only on elected officials, because most of them, they are doing their own aspect at their own level. We saw the president of the Regional Council of the Northwest region that was even planning to make a tour all over Cameroon to talk with indigents from the Northwest.
The vice president.
The vice president. They are doing their move. We appreciate their own aspect. But I still say it. We should come back to us, the people. Before we start to judge our own elite, which I first of all said that those of Southwest are doing a good job. I still repeat it, and I know my reason why I'm repeating this statement. Those in the Southwest are doing a good job. I want those of the Northwest to get up. But what I'm saying here is that before we see them, the state has the responsibility to take care of security, while us citizens has as duty to ensure the security of our nation. What have we done as citizens? I want to make these differences, which we all know, but I want to make it clearly, Mr. Kum Leonard. When a military officer killed a child in Bamenda, the government came out and apologized. When the same happened in Boya, they came out and apologized. But when Amba fighter went to Kumba, St. Francis, something of that college, took children, slaughtered them with knife and not even with gun. Slaughtered one, keep aside, take the other one, slaughtered up to 7. I didn't see citizens of Kumba coming out to riot to tell the military, to tell the Amba to stop all this. They did not. What they did is they turned to the government and started accusing the government. They should take their civil duties and also stand and fight for the security of our nation. It is time for us to stand when the Amba does something wrong. And not only when it is the military, we march to the governor's office. And when it is the Amba fighter, we turn to tell the military that the government is responsible. Those are the games the citizens are playing. They may say they are afraid, but we should stand up and say things the way they are. When we learn to say things the way they are, we will have solutions. Talking about separatist fighters, we know people that have always been there, Mr. Kum Leonard, in the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s when these things were being fought silently in the ground. Why are they not coming out to support those people in the diaspora? Because they know the business that these guys are doing. Why the common people are dying. They even say it among themselves in their forums that this battle may be for 20 to 30 years, so everybody needs to try for his head and see how you can take care of their family. That's what they say in their forums. And the gullible people are there trusting them. Sorry, Mr. Kum Leonard, that I'm taking your platform to say this, and I pray you don't stop me. A pastor that was selling newspaper in America and was very poor. Today, because of the crisis, the child is in America going to a school that the school fees is worth 20 million. France CFA, that's the pastor that was suffering. My brother here said that the Norwegian whatsoever were those that said that the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest is most neglected. Who is in Norway that is inflaming this crisis? We know. But why is that country not assisting Cameroon? So please, I am telling people of Northwest and Southwest that please, we should collaborate with our elites, economic, political, and social, so that we can bring peace back and forget about these people in the diaspora, business people.
Okay, Robert. Yes, we are looking at the world playing silent or blind to what is happening in Cameroon. But can we also understand the silence of African nations?
Yeah, you should not forget. You know, whether we there is a lot in all of this. You know, Cameroon is really not different from most African countries. If you go next door, Chad, you will not have something quite different from what is happening in Cameroon. If you went to Gabon, I'm sure you would have come back with the same report. So when you look at the African Union, it is very sad that even from the seat of the African Union, where today we are talking about Ethiopia, even from Addis Ababa, the rebels of Tigray are not more than 600, I think not more than 600 kilometers or so away from Tigray, or I think something of that nature. That would tell you already that everywhere in Africa there is chaos. So it will be like the question Jesus asked, who among you hasn't sinned should be the first person to cast a stone. So this is where we find ourselves. And again, you know, there was a time I think the MP or the senators came out. I think there was a certain outing by one American, or I think a statement that came from the US, which we saw a whole house of legislators coming out to tell them that Cameroon is a sovereign state. They should respect our sovereignty. They should not try to look into our affairs and things like that. That makes it obvious that this crisis cannot really be heard. So with regards to the African Union, why African countries are silent, what is Nigeria going to tell Cameroon? Well, we know that the same thing you're coming to talk about here is the same thing that's happening in your country. We talk about Ghana so much. A lot of people talk about Ghana. But I think most people do not know what is happening in Ghana. They too are not okay. They are not okay with their system. We cannot talk about South Africa. So practically every country in the world is in a deep shit. It is the reason why I am saying that the best thing we need to do is to first of all accept our fault and then try to solve our problems. Because if we are waiting for that angel, the angel is not going to come. There is nobody out there that can solve your problem. The worst of it is when the government makes it an internal problem. That statement in international relations is something else. If a country says what I am facing is an internal problem, it means you would only come in when that threshold of what causes the international community to come in break. When that doesn't happen, forget about it. Another thing will be, except when the government calls you in, that come and help me solve this problem. If that doesn't happen, forget about it. And this is the reality, and it is very difficult to accept it. And that is why, especially from the camp, of the non-state actors, they find it very difficult to accept these things, because given that they have not studied them, they think the issue of sovereignty would just come from some other person's table, forgetting to, I think they don't want to accept the reality that these countries are having, or this country is having a bilateral relationship with this country. And on the basis of their friendship, which has to do from the regime in place to the presidency of that said country, they have certain deals that they cannot just get up to break. I may not be surprised. There was a time we expected Musa Faki to speak, but the things he said were not the things which many wanted. And I want to say that there is a difference between what you want and what should be in place. With regards to this conflict in Cameroon, there is a particular thing that must be in place other than what you want. No matter the amount of persons that will die, it is sad. No matter how many people die, no matter how many will die, that will not take place. Somebody was asking that what is the difference between the Anglophone crisis and the issue of separation. The Anglophone crisis is very clear. The Anglophone crisis talks about the marginalization of the Anglophones. Why the issue of the no-state actor is we want outright self-determination. And so self-determination is what no nation in the world negotiate for it. If you are not able to lobby that person whom you think wields the power to bring about the amount of change or to bring about the nation you are expecting, then forget about it, because the issue of self-determination is enshrined in the UN Charter. But what takes place is that these countries will not sit to give it to you on the platter of gold. So it is obvious that African leaders would not talk about the crisis in Cameroon as we are expecting. Okay. One, most of these countries are friendly countries to Cameroon. And so just as you may have an issue with your child back at home, your friend may want to call that what is happening, I hear your child cry so much. And once you tell your friend that no, this child is either not doing this or I am doing this for this child and he wants this, your friend will not set in. So African Union itself, I think that is one of the reasons why the European Union had to call on the African, the CEMAC first to look into it, the African Union. This is where they began. So once these countries, and ever since the European Union made that outing, we haven't heard CEMAC said anything. And it is obvious that Cameroon is at the pivot of the economy within the sub-region. And they will not because they know what happens. Of course, we should not forget, if you talk about Chad, they will depend on our seaport. If you talk about Gabon, we all know how much they are depending on us in terms of food. If you talk about Equatorial Guinea, we know the quantity of food and electricity that they rely on us. If you talk about Central African Republic, we know that we are keeping their refugees in the east. So when you look at all of these things, it becomes very difficult. And this is where I come in to say that the only people who can stop this crisis will be the citizens. If the citizens of this nation want this crisis to come to an end tomorrow, they should mobilize. It will stop. And once that has not happened, we will keep on being in this. And just like Robert said, please, we should not, do not pamper that child when he goes wrong. If the person in the bush you call your brother goes wrong, call him to order. If you think he's going to give you what is commonly known as short sleeve or long sleeve, and you sit quiet, if he does this today and you don't decry, you don't condemn, tomorrow he will come for more. It is the same thing with the military. If we sit quiet when they perpetrate on professionalism, we will face their brunt. But when we cry out and when we tell them, they understand. And we cannot just be telling them. We look at the instruments. What would war crime talk about? What does it mean? Because they know all of these things. So if I were to be speaking to them, I'll be telling them, because it is also our duty to tell them what they ought to be doing. Once they are already caught in a conflict, and we do not have the powers to call them to order, we will tell them the way to go about the conflict. Okay. I think that is the reason why that's the reason why experts in conflict, they will always come in to educate the masses and educate the warring party on how to go about the war. So I think the issue with African leaders, as your question was, not about talking anything about this, I think it's happening so because their relationship with Cameroon, most of them have a bilateral relationship, and they cannot just get up tomorrow to spoil it because they want to talk about separation.
Okay, Carlson, Ayaba, we are talking about a situation where increasingly it's the common man that is caught between two factions. How do we spare the common man from what is happening?
How do we spare the common man from what is happening, Mr. Leo? I think we have not yet condemned with the great strength what has happened in Bambalang, Mr. Leo. This is a fun of the whole fandom. I'm pleading with my brothers, because they are still our brothers. You cannot hold tradition responsible. It is a taboo. Sometimes we should respect some kind of things. We should respect traditional and cultural. These are things that we were trained not to joke with them. They cannot hold a fun hostage. It's never heard of, Mr. Leo. So we should condemn what has happened. So now back to your question. Mr. Leo, I remember when Boko Haram attacked this country in 2012, 2014 earlier. I remember how the whole country mobilized right down to the subdivisions. People contributed things to be able to send to our militaries to fight. I remember there was a time I was in Kumba where a bike rider painted Boko Haram on his bike, and he was well beaten by the population because we saw it as a form of provocation. So what must be done, Mr. Lo, for the common man to stop suffering? We must condemn everything with equal strength. That is where I side with Robert. If you are able to carry a dead child in front of the governor and cry that the military has done this, the government should do something, you should equally be able to do this very kind of action when the Amber does this very kind of thing. What happened in Ekono Titi, we did not see any kind of uprising. What happened in Kumba with Mother Francisca, we did not see this kind of uprising. And if we have to continue playing blind eye to one side, then at the end of the day, it is only us who are going to suffer. And why do we is because, Mr. Leo, in Cameroon, this is the first time this kind of thing is happening. This kind of internal conflict is happening in Cameroon, and many people are excited. Many people are, because I've never seen this kind of internal conflict. So we are novices in this, so we don't know how to handle internal conflict. And the novices does not mean no civilians. Even the government is a novice in this field because A government which is experienced in dealing with internal conflict, we will not have had ministers who will wake up and say 2 cubes of sugar, who will wake up and say, if I am in my office drinking palm wine, what the hell happens to the Southwest and Northwest? We will not have had governors who will wake up and call people dogs. It's because we are novices in this field, and also because we are novices. That is why some people thought that picking up arms, refusing people from going to school, declaring lockdowns is going to quickly give you that independence. It's because we don't realize the impact of all these actions. We are still novices in this field. Like I always say, the solution of a problem cannot be worse than the problem. If the solution you are trying to bring to solve a problem creates more problems, then you should stop that solution. If kidnapping people, killing people, demanding for ransom, stopping schools is not giving you independence, then that solution is the wrong path. If going to burn houses because you want the civilians to cooperate to give you the hideouts of Amber, if intimidating people, extorting money from them is not still making the crisis to calm down, then I am afraid we are taking the wrong direction. So, Mr. Leo, at the end of the day, we must be able to condemn everything with equal force. Now, one of the truest statements that came out an international body, I've forgotten which international person made, was that France and Britain have a big role to play in the resolution of this crisis. Whether we like it or not, the two Cameroons were trustship territories before they finally came as one, and they were under the control of France and Britain. So it is France and Britain who delivered them to their independence or to their union, and now the union is not working. So France and Britain have a very big role to be able to come and sit down and look at the parameters which did not click rightly and to be able to adjust them. I remember when the president of the MRC party was in prison, and what happened? The French president came out and condemned, and not long after, Maurice Kamto was released from prison. So it shows the influence which France has on pulling the Cameroon government, as well as Britain has, because Cameroon is a member of La Francophonie and the Commonwealth. So these two people have a very big role to be able to come into this country and resolve the kind of problems, because at the end of the day, how do you expect a common man to be able to trust the government officials or those in power who have been able to make wrong statements and bad statements which make people to be polarized? How do you expect another common man to be able to trust the separatist leaders who must have killed probably their fathers, their brothers, their children? So it's a very deep polarized nature, and because we are novices, we don't understand the complete nature, how complicated it is of this. So we need an international body or an international presence to be able to push us to that table, and that's the only way we can solve it. If we are able to hold each other accountable for this, say, yes, you did this, you did this, but you know we can sit together and be able to achieve this very goal. The only way we can do that is to accept that justice must be done in all directions, by holding each and every person accountable for whatever atrocities they have caused, beginning from the government right down to the separatists.
Okay. Professor Mark Anthony, Bamenda is bleeding. Other quarters are bleeding. The people of Bambalang are actually very sad because their phone is not with them. We have had many instances. What should be the actions that should follow for things to some extent return to relatively normal situation?
Mr. Leo, this particular crisis is one of the most complicated crises that I can actually mention of. Being that it's a crisis that is directly affecting us as individuals, and you are looking at it and trying to ask the question, where do I stand? Mm-hmm. Look at the fact that a phone will be picked up. This happened before in the Saltland, and we thought maybe it was something that just happened. Chiefs had been even killed. That is not part of the Anglo-Saxon whatsoever that we used to say we are defending. And worst of it, that has little or nothing to do with the African culture. That chiefs are killed, chiefs are arrested, funds are picked up, palaces are desecrated. It is a crime on its own. And I think any wise person should stand and condemn this and ask those brothers who have picked up funds to release these funds. That fund is not your enemy. Irrespective of what he has done, I believe that there is a way to deal with it. One thing also I would say about most of our funds and chiefs is that some of them who are supposed to be neutral when it comes to political parties have gone off the path. They are supposed to stay neutral for their people, because as a fund or a chief of an area, you have different categories of people from different parties. You are supposed to be a father of them all, not taking sides. And that is an error that most of our funds and chiefs have done, to take sides and be in a particular political party, which is a great hindrance to their neutrality right now. And so I think that irrespective of this ill that they have committed, we should not desecrate our own very inner cultures, the values that make us who we are. And so those who have picked up that fund, I mean the fund of Bambalang, I ask that they release that man. That is a wrong step, and it is condemnable, and I condemn it as an individual. And when we look at the issue of people going homeless because their houses have been burnt down, that is something that nobody should accept. In fact, that's one of the worst human right abuses that an individual can commit, where individuals are forced out of their homes with fire. Some of them are even burnt in their houses. That is not something that should be condoned with. And that's why we condemn it. And so if you ask me how we can get out of this particular issue, Mr. Leo,
how do we spare civilians?
It will be very difficult to spare civilians, because it is a guerrilla warfare where it is fought among civilians. As long as the AMBA keeps on doing their, using the civilian population as their cover-up, the civilians will keep on suffering. Because when the military comes to pick up, or maybe they are fighting against the AMBA gets into somebody's house or goes behind somebody's house, the person will suffer. And that is where it is very complicated. Because it will be considered now that the civilians are covering up the AMBA. But no, that is one thing also we should understand. The civilians are not the Ambazonians. The people holding guns are the ones fighting. And I think they should be targeted, not the civilians. And so if the military steps out there and maybe they have been hit by the AMBA, the civilians should not be the ones they should target. And that is where there is a problem. But as I said, it is a very difficult situation to handle. Why? Because the AMBA in question is not putting on a uniform that you identify them as individuals, but they know them. And so I think that it is high time this dialogue we are talking happens, so that this thing can stop. We don't want our people dying every day. We don't want to be seeing houses burnt every day. More than 400 houses, villages have been set ablaze. So we need to get to the point where this thing stops. And now is that time.
Okay. Now, how do we organize our communities in a way that they provide security for themselves and reduce casualty, reduce the possibility for themselves to be used as collateral for the warring factions?
Firstly, in the north region of Cameroon, we saw them coming out to create vigilante groups in their villages so that they can collaborate and ensure that the crisis comes to an end. Secondly, normally there will always be casualty when it comes to vigilante security. That's also the risk in it. Secondly, collaborations with the elites and those people. The people, before doing this vigilante to ensure their security, they need to also know the advantages that they are so gain from the government, which it goes to communication. We are still insist that the Southwesterners have that communication, which is lacking in the Northwest because some Northwest elites are playing one-man show.
What do you mean by that?
That's another aspect. My viewers have understood Mr. Kum Leonard, so I will not go into details. And even them, the elites, some of them have understood. If that collaboration is with them, it will give now an opportunity for those our fathers and our mothers in the village to tell our brothers, Mr. Kum Leonard, those boys in the bush, they are our brothers. We are origins from the northwest and southwest, they are our brothers. Before our parents will tell them to leave, our parents need to have information from the other side that come, this is what we have. Which I believe the government have done a lot, which they are not satisfied, and the government still need to do a lot, because it is legitimate that the people ask from the government, because they put the government there to do what they want. So it is very, very clear at that aspect. Mr. Kum Leonard, I knew why I decided to answer these particular questions at the beginning of this debate. I know why I wanted to answer it at the end, when the program is coming to an end. Before the international community will come in, Mr. Kum Leonard, they will analyze the human rights violation. All countries in the world where the international community have intervened, they intervene with the tool of human rights violation. And in the case of Cameroon, why they cannot intervene with the case of human rights violation, they analyze the two. Where is violence and violation of human rights coming from? To know if they will intervene. Mr. Kum Leonard, we've seen incidents that the government have done and they have come out and apologized. Mr. Kum Leonard, when Chris Anu comes out and says burn the vehicles of the United Nations, what do you want the United Nations to do? When Eric Tato come out and say cut the hands of people going to plantation, what do you want the international organization to do? When they come out and say students should not go to school, when is their fundamental human right which is non-negotiable, what do you want the international community to do? When they go ahead killing girls, women, using stick, putting into their private part, cutting their necks on top of third road in Moyoka, what do you want the international community to do? When the principal foundation of human rights is life, and life is being taken in such barbaric way on video, and they even defend it to say I am general this, I did this in Morocco because this person in America asked me to do it. What do you want the human rights bodies to do? The violation is coming from the wrong side. Have you ever seen a video where the government use a stick to put into the private part of a woman, desecrating womanhood? If the military does that, I tell you the international community will come in. But the military does not do that. Have you seen the military cutting people's neck in the street? Going to schools, taking children, slicing their necks one after the other as if it is beef. Yeah. Have you seen the government doing that? The government is not doing that. Yeah, but the ambassadors are the one doing that. Mr. Kum Leonard, I ask you now and I ask my viewers, how do you think the international community will intervene when the violence is coming from Amber? They cannot.
Yeah, we need to spare. We need to spare communities. I asked a question to you. You're answering something else.
I already answered you.
You keep repeating the issue of.
I already answered you.
You keep repeating the issue of heads being sliced. I don't know where heads were actually sliced.
Oh, in Moyoka, the young girl that was sliced. No, the neck was sliced on top of the third road, and Moyoka, everybody saw it. Maybe you didn't see it. After the program, I'll send it to you on WhatsApp. Everybody saw it, Mr.
I'm talking about students. That their heads were sliced.
Students.
Yes.
The San Francisco College in Kumba, that some of them were killed. Where guns were not used, Mr. Kum Leonard. It was knife. One was taken slaughtered one after the other. Guns were not used by Amber. Okay. And I tell you people in Kumba, watching us today, tell us if your children that were killed in that Kumba, and they're watching us.
It's not war now. Are you fighting the war in the studio? Robert.
No, Mr. Kum Leonard.
Robert,
the
please.
issue is that
Robert, please.
You wanted to say that they were not.
Robert, please. Are we?
No, I'm a Republican. I'm a member of the CPDM. I'll learn to. We are
not fighting war here, please.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah. Okay. How do we spare our communities from what they have been going through?
I think, given the nature of the war, we are talking about an asymmetric war. And it is the most difficult war in the face of the earth, because the warring parties come into the community, and the antagonist is where there's the protagonists would want to target. And so when you find these people in these places, it becomes very difficult. So how do we protect now our people from this? I think to protect our people from this, one is to educate them on how to go about it when certain moments like this are concerned. Firstly, they need to be neutral. It is obvious that if you want to openly side with a particular party, then you may not be able. So what do? You are living in a country that has laws, and you must go by the laws of that country. That's the first thing the people need to do. If it's difficult for you to actually do that, it is a reason why the international instruments provide for the statutes of an internally displaced person. You can openly leave that area if you are not quite safe in that area. If you have it enshrined in the international instruments, I think it's because your country is a member to this. We ratified that. That is the reason why we have refugees in Cameroon. And that is the reason why people in the internally displaced persons are being protected. Because some of these communities are so hostile to the extent that no matter what to do, you could either be caught in a crossfire or you could be a target. And like we saw the case of Bengui, it is obvious that why the facts are yet to be on the table, we can clearly see that the community was not spared. So it may be very difficult, but I think it is the only option to do. You must not come out to tell A that I am with you or B that I am with you. What you need to do is to go by the fundamental laws of the country. We are talking about a country which has laws, and what you need to do is to see how you within the law of the country can look for a safe place. Now, our communities are also trapped because not everybody can leave. And because not everybody can leave, some time ago I said, for the warring parties, if you really want to fight, we have the bushes. You could go somewhere. They could go somewhere and put up their battlefield. Why they are fighting, they should save our people. Because we are tired of seeing the innocent children. Look at the situation of Bengui yesterday. The amount of persons
Bengui
Road, pardon. The amount of persons died in that inferno. It is so terrible. Let us look at the case of the fawn who is being kidnapped. We don't know where he is. So you realize that our fawns cannot forever be internally displaced persons. Our fawns cannot forever be refugees. And so what do we need to do? We have to go back to look at the fabrics of our society. These areas where the non-state actors have decided to inhabit, they should also bear in mind that there are other humans living there. And so when it is time for them to put up their battles, they should please leave the civilian habitat and go somewhere else to carry out their action, where they can meet their target, not within the civilian setup, because we are tired of seeing these children. Somebody may want to say that, are you on the other hand implying that the military are not humans? They are. Are you on the other hand implying that the non-state actors are not humans or Cameroonians? They are. How be it, with the situation at hand, it calls for a particular measure, and these measures are the normal measures to take. They should avoid the civilian population. If the civilians are serving as your shield, then don't forget you shall be held for war crimes. I keep on saying this. There are persons in Africa who were recruited when they were just age 10. And when it was time for them to be prosecuted, they did not consider the time they were conscripted. Because some of these guys were conscripted. Yet, they grew up, even abandoned the conflict. And they went somewhere thinking that they now have their new life. But they were prosecuted because of what they did. So we cannot continue to endanger our civilian population, because the non-state actors or the non-state armed groups, they consider themselves a military in their own category. That is why you have self-arrogated generals in their fold. That is why you have self-arrogated colonels in their fold. That is why you have self-arrogated commanders in their fold. So they have in their fold certain offices arrogated to themselves. As such, they equate themselves with the Republican Army of the United Republic of the Republic of Cameroon. Therefore, If they want to battle, if they want to look for a place where they can exert their anger or where they can carry out their fighting, it should not be within the civilians' habitat, because it will forever cause casualty in the civilian habitat.
Okay. Carlson, what should be the way out of the current impasse? Many more property destroyed, lives taken. Should we not spare our civilian population?
Yeah, obviously we need to spare the civilian population. My hearts go again, especially to the people of Bangui, because I'm a person from Bangui, especially to the phone on Bangui from Jokem. So what must be done, as Mr. Lucas said, the first thing is education. We must continue to educate people, those who have taken up arms, about the consequences of their actions and about how this crisis can take a full course, how this crisis can take a peaceful course to its resolution. It is not by picking up arms. As well as the government must also continue to educate the military personnel on ground about their actions which they carry, because some of these actions only provoke or only make people to become more polarized. Second thing which should be done is we must encourage things like the CPDM and other gatherings of Anglophones who are coming to resolve this crisis, because in truth, one of the reasons why the international community is not coming is there are too many factions for the very problem. We call it an Anglophone problem, but you hear they are separatists, they are confederalists, they are federalists, and they are whatsoever unionists, and there are so many factions. And the international community cannot say, who am I going to discuss with? So it is important that we support all these gatherings like a CDN and others to be able to give a common voice of the Anglophones, which we can use as a platform for dialogue. The next thing is there must be rationality among us. Many things happen, and we become too emotional and forget to understand the facts of what happened, to be able to analyze it and to be able to prevent that this kind of thing does not happen again. So we must become very, very rational. And the next thing is, the fourth thing is, we want the government to carry out significant gestures. It is very sad that for 5-6 years now, we have not seen the head of state descend to the southwest and northwest region. Is it that he does not care? I know he cares about these two regions, but there are certain gestures which will be carried out. We play a lot. We have a lot of impact on the ground, like the head of state visiting these regions. I think those around the head of state should be able to advise or give necessary allocations for the head of state to see this region. It is his country, and he loves the people, and he loves all of us adequately. The last and the fifth point is that we must fear God. Galatians 6 verse 7. God cannot be mocked. We must fear God for
Are you guys
to be
really
able to solve this crisis.
Okay, we thank you very much. We are going to be ending here, but Carlson, we have come to the end of today's edition of the program. Thank you for taking part.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. Today, we know Camtel was vandalized, the fiber was vandalized in Camtel, linking Yaoundé to almost all the whole country. I don't know who are those who are against the state. Communication is a very important tool against the state, and I'll be begging all Cameroonians, wherever you see people operating around the Camtel chamber, you should use your civilian powers to be able to interpose and interject that person, because without communication as a country, we cannot go forward. Cameroon or Camtel has a bigger vision for us. My heartfelt warm, my greetings go again to the people of Bangui. I'm a son of Bangui about these atrocities, and I pray them that they should take heart and we shall see a solution of this crisis.
Okay. We also want to say thank you to you, Prof. Mark, for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. I also want to end by saying that it's very important that the Swiss discussion should be for that. I think it's time for it to actually be taken into consideration. Whatsoever was supposed to be done there, that I think it's time for that discussion to start.
Okay. Thank you too for coming.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Greeting to all the people in Bambalang. No pity. I believe you come from Bambalang. Nothing should happen with the chief. That should be very clear. Greetings to all those that enjoy my stance and like what I say. Special greetings to those that don't like my stand. It's a pleasure. I'm happy to be here to give my view. Special greetings to the head of state, of course, President Paul Biya, that have sacrificed almost 40 years of his life to serve the nation, and Honorable Ngala Gerard. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Also to you, J. Lucas, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to take this opportunity to tell all those who have it quite hard with regards to the ongoing crisis, that someday it's going to come to an end. And I want to appreciate the staffs of Recover and Rehabilitate for Better Tomorrow. They are doing quite a good job taking care of those who have had it quite difficult, having a very tough time with children whom are those who are bearing the brunt of this crisis, to ensure that they can still have hope to go to school and many more. And Mr. Liu, I want to also say that our organization is also within our community to help the people. And on the 12th, please, we will be organizing a football match. The Union Bulifamba guys and the veteran of the town, they will be organizing a football match, which is, we call it the match that will bring back the My 16 community together, because we know for sure that our people can only come together when there is something very good. That is why we don't want war, because it separates us a lot.
I hope I can also create time.
Yes, it will be a pleasure to have you, and why not even my media prime for that event. It will be a great one on the 12th. That will be on Sunday.
I'll be in my 16. I'll call on Sunday. Nganje, Stephen, and all the guys in my 16 to wait for us. I'll be there.
Okay, that'll be a pleasure.
Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all. I agree with Prof. Mark that funds shouldn't be touched, as well as they shouldn't be involved in party politics, though the Constitution may consider everyone as a citizen with freedom to get involved in politics. I think somehow funds and chiefs should have been exempted from party politics so as to avoid bias in their rules. Thomas, writing from Muthaga, Daisy from Kumba says, good evening, everyone. In a convention in Limbe, good evening to you, Daisy. Emil from Jotin says, okay, we should put order in the house. Mabisong from Kumba says we should first seek the kingdom of God. Okay. Good evening to everybody, and we thank you all for watching the program. Thank you to Eli and Desmond, and to Tabby Tambe Brand, who is supervising the work we do out there. Stay blessed. Bye-bye. Says, okay, we should put order in the house.